What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the Xbox because a new sales report has just been released that somehow the Xbox console is actually doing worse than last year. Now, last year was actually record-breakingly bad sales, and now they're down another 60%. Microsoft has officially declared they're about to start pulling out of certain markets. Now, what that means is that not only is the Xbox not selling, they're about to stop even shipping them to certain parts of the world. But I want to talk about this because a lot of journalists and gamers are kind of freaking out about these sales numbers because they're so bad, they don't even mathematically make sense. But let's take a look at the data. Hi, hope you're having a great day. And if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So this is Christopher Dring, one of the writers over at gamesindustry.biz, and this is part of a larger report. But what's interesting is that people have been talking a lot about the game industry shrinking, a lot of layman opinions. It seems like the data doesn't back this up, but there has been conversation about the fact that as we continue to get more remakes and remasters and DLC for irrelevant games and stuff like that, it feels like less people are buying games. That's kind of the conversation, is that the industry is shrinking, when that's definitely not the case. I mean, I've talked about that myself, that it feels like there's less good games, but people are clearly still spending. Game sales are up 20%. Now, this is actually a pretty big thing. There's actually tens of billions of dollars moving around in the gaming industry. So a 20% increase in sales, that's a very good sign. Now, that's probably because of stuff like Space Marine, the huge success of stuff like Astro Bot, even things like God of War Ragnarok and FF16 coming to PC. Those both actually boosted the industry sales. But here's the part people are focusing on the most. PS5 console sales are down 17% year on year, which even that seems kind of bad to me. I mean, typically at this point, I feel like you would see console sales speed up because normally 4 years into a life cycle, you get either the first or second price drop. Typically, like since the PlayStation 5 launched at $500, you would expect 4 years into the cycle, it'd cost $350 or something at this point, but it's still not. I think part of this comes down to the fact that there's so many people who have already bought a PS5, they're having trouble reaching a new audience. The Nintendo Switch is actually speeding up in sales, which I must admit is extremely strange to me because, I mean, no offense, I'm not really playing my Nintendo Switch at all at this point, but somehow people are still buying Nintendo Switches. Here's the big part, though, that a lot of people are really digging in on. Xbox sales are down 58% this year. Starfield launched last year. Now, some people initially took this as him signaling the fact that sales spiked in September of 2020. And that's not the case. Last year, even though Starfield came out in 2023, it actually did not boost sales whatsoever. I actually found the exact data here. Last year, Xbox sales were already down 35%, which was a cataclysmically bad number. This is just literally going down and down and down. I mean, it just seems insane to me that, if anything, these numbers are getting to the point where it's pretty obvious that Xbox is going to die, that Xbox is pretty much in its last death throes. Now, when I talk about this, people often get upset saying, you're just stirring up console war BS, or I don't truly understand the Microsoft metrics. But I think that if you cannot sell a console, you're going to have long-term problems no matter what. Because when it comes to these systems, they do make a lot of money on exclusives. Whether it is Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, they make a lot of money on exclusives, at least on paper, right? But where you actually make the most money is third-party stuff. I mean, anything that gets sold on a PlayStation 5, Sony takes a direct 30% cut. So if they sell $100 of DLC, the developer gets $70 and Sony gets $30 completely for free. So that's why Sony makes just literally billions and billions of dollars every single year on like Fortnite microtransactions and stuff. Xbox has gotten themselves in this weird spot where, because nobody's buying an Xbox and literally nobody is buying Xbox games, they're not even getting that 30% cut from other people. Now, the reason everybody is just kind of literally shocked is because it just seems like Xbox's big campaign, Xbox has really been pushing the fact that you don't need an Xbox. Xbox is an idea. Xbox is a brand. Xbox is just this nebulous concept. A TV can be an Xbox. Your phone can be an Xbox. That kind of marketing is not selling systems, and I think now it's completely blowing up in their faces way quicker than anybody could have predicted. I thought Xbox would die in about 5 years. They may not last another 2 years, at least not in the current existence. Like, even if they are selling subscriptions, even if Game Pass is like generating some money, you can't deny the fact that a 58% drop in sales is completely bonkers. Everybody is pointing out the fact that it just seems like Xbox systems, one of the biggest problems of them is they have so many different variations. There's different versions of disk drive and no disk drive and tiny version. The Xbox Series S, which has much worse graphics and no disk drive. And that's why we're starting to see stuff like this. This morning, there was an official press release internally done, but it's been confirmed that Microsoft is going to stop selling consoles in the Middle East and in North Africa. Now, a lot of people have chimed in that live in those territories, places like the UAE and stuff like that, and they've essentially said that the entire Middle East at this point is just owned by PlayStation. If you want to play stuff, you're either doing it on your PC, but predominantly people play on systems, and it's all PlayStation 4s and PlayStation 5s. Now, the reason I feel like this is such a crazy idea to me is that once you've abandoned a market, you can't really go back. I have never, in all my years of light market research and stuff like that, if you pull out of an area, it's very difficult to get back into it. They call it building inroads, meaning that if they're taking out consoles. Now, I looked into this. This is not just taking this out of stores. It's taking out of distributors, meaning that even if for some reason GameStop in the Middle East wanted to stock Xboxes, they can't. It's literally not possible. And Microsoft will not ship Xbox to the Middle East flat out, period. So it means that whenever we do get that rumored Xbox handheld or whatever the next Xbox Series console ends up being, whatever the next generation, when it begins, I don't think they're going to even attempt selling. I mean, these markets are now completely dead to Microsoft. I mean, the fact that they're just piling the consoles up on the floor because they're that irrelevant in that market, I think it's pretty clearly showing that Microsoft is getting ready to make their exit. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that Microsoft's marketing for the last couple of years has been saying, we're beyond consoles. It's all about Game Pass. And I feel like this has caused a lot of issues with the fact that people are not buying games on Xbox, so studios aren't supporting the Xbox. Developers are not even buying to buy an Xbox dev kit to put their stuff on Xbox. The entire house of cards has begun to collapse. Now, I wanted to talk about this tweet I saw because I feel like, in a way, this very much succinctly explains the death of Xbox, in my opinion, which is this idea about how shows keep getting made by Netflix and then pretty much immediately canceled. And this isn't just Netflix, it's also stuff like Disney Plus. They spent like hundreds of millions of dollars making the Acolyte TV show, which I heard some fans liked and a lot of fans really, really hated. But a lot of this stuff, making it and then immediately canceling it, even after you've invested like $500 million into it, just to instantly cut it, it's very strange to see. And so this quote came out, audiences are being overfed and starved at the same time. And the reason I find this to be such a relatable story to Xbox is because I do feel like Xbox's biggest problem is that when they initially pitched the idea of Xbox Game Pass, when they first sort of came out and explained how this is going to be the future of gaming, how it's going to be the best deal in gaming, on paper, it always made sense of like, okay, they have access to 20 different studios, right? So if each of them is putting out a game that takes 3 years to make or 4 years to make, that means that every single year you could get 3 or 4 really, really big top tier releases. You've got Doom and Indiana Jones and Starfield and stuff like that. But the problem is that that just didn't pay off. In fact, they're closing studios. Hi-Fi Rush was actually beloved, and they shut them down pretty much the second that game just came out. They finished the ports of putting it on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch and told everybody to get the hell out. Same with Tango Gameworks and stuff like that. Or, sorry, Tango is the Hi-Fi Rush people. But it is weird to me that the idea was always like, hey, stay subscribed to Game Pass, because even if the current slate of games doesn't look good, the next month will be worth it, or the month after that. And now they've left the audience starving. Even if they are planning on big stuff coming up, it is yet to materialize. Whereas when it comes to Microsoft versus Sony, you could just, I think the most fair criticism people posit a lot against PlayStation is the lack of current day creativity. A lot of their projects are remakes and remasters, or sequels, or the latest reboot of a long-running series. I mean, when they do try and do completely new stuff like Concord, it ends up completely blowing up in their faces. But now there's talks about like a God of War remastered saga. That's not the actual title. And this has people very, very excited. But even then, this is not exactly like a bold new idea, right? This is just another thing that is a safe bet for PlayStation. Another meal that's not meant to make you feel full. It's not meant to leave you starving. It's just supposed to keep you playing on the platform. I think Microsoft has made a very big gamble and it didn't pay off. I have come off a lot against Xbox. I've said a lot of stuff against Xbox, but I have to admit, now that it's all completely imploding, it is strange to imagine what happens next. They bet everything on Game Pass. There's a lot of leaked internal documents and stuff that came out that Phil Spencer essentially said from the very start, we can only be Game Pass. The whole point is Game Pass. Every trailer should say Game Pass. Every reveal needs to say Game Pass. Make sure that everybody only subscribes to that. Because on paper, the math would have eventually worked if they had 20 million or 50 million or somehow 100 million people all paying $20 a month that could easily fund the next 10 years of game development. And it just never actually worked out. The numbers matched what they were trying to do. And even now that they're going third party, now that every Xbox game that actually looks good is also coming to PlayStation, it just seems like Xbox really made the biggest bet, and now they have to fold. But I guess we're going to find out what happens next. I've seen a lot of PlayStation fanboys starting to kind of get nervous, and I think their fear is rather fascinating. Because what's always pushed PlayStation the best is the importance of pressure. The privilege of pressure, to quote Chris Bumstead, Mr. Olympia. He has always said that when you've already won the Olympia, now you have to keep trying to stay ahead. All right, I've already won a bunch of trophies and stuff like that. Now I have to keep fighting hard to keep earning those trophies, to keep basically living up to the expectations. And Sony is best when they have that privilege of pressure. When somebody else is making good games, they actually care about, all right, how can we beat them in sales? How can we beat them in Metacritic? How can we beat them in hype? Without Xbox even trying, I do think that, I do fear very much that Sony is going to pretty much give up as well. Because they don't have to try. They don't have that fear of failure. But I guess we're going to find out. I just want to do a rambly talk about this because I do think that 58% drop in sales is, I think the warning bells are going off over at Microsoft. I think there's about to be a lot of firings. I think there's about to be a lot more layoffs, like in the number of thousands. And I think that, I think Xbox is done. But we'll find out. What do you guys think about this? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. All right, now going back, I got to go play more Metaphor Refont. Oh, no, maybe I'm not allowed to say that. Metaphor. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.